What's going on, beautiful people? We are back again with another Mental Max Out podcast. I'm your host, Akeem Robinson. And for those of you joining us for the first time, thanks for checking it out. Mental Max Out is all about helping people change their perspectives, think differently, and get out of the hole. If you're back again, I celebrate your willingness to continue growing and challenging your mind. Remember, if you like what you hear today, make sure you hit that subscribe button or whatever platform you're listening from. Share it with a friend and follow us on social media at Mental Max Out Podcast. Last week, our family, we went to a trip to California, Allison's hometown. And it was a fantastic trip. We had so much fun. It was also a first time for Serena. And let me tell you, traveling with a baby is not for the weak. I think you should get a badge of honor every time you do it, but that's neither here nor there. But every time we go to California, Allison always makes it a point to meet up with her friends. And one day while we were driving, I asked her the question of, has their experiences of coming back home changed over the years? Does it feel different? I was curious to know if anything was now noticeably different in her because we now have a family. Our family is growing. She's now being further removed because she left California to go to school, so it's been a while. She said there have been some changes in local businesses and new places, but one of the biggest things that she's noticed over the years are some of the friendships aren't as strong as they used to be. Some of the friends have moved away. What's the whole point in that? The fact is, everything is changing and evolving. Many times we feel intimidated by the shifts happening around us as they hold a mirror up to our faces and say, do we need to change to be a part of this new season of life? Some of those moments may look like worrying about a significant other or worrying about family dynamics and changes in your family, or just change in reality of what you're now doing at work, or just feeling a bit anxious about being relocated. A Greek philosopher once said, change is the only constant in life. Change is happening all around us all the time. In the book Drive by Daniel Pink, he says, human beings have an innate drive to be autonomous, self-determined, and connected to one another. And when that drive is liberated, people achieve more and live richer lives. So why is it so challenging for us to change? I'm not talking about changing jobs, moving to a different state, or taking a risk. I want to talk about the fear of changing who you are. Yes, your identity. It is impacted by our culture and the way in which the world operates around us. Imagine you have been dedicated your whole entire life to a company or an organization, and you've been a part of that group for 10 years, and you proudly carry your ID badge with you, and it has your name on it, your title, and your company logo. But one day you decide to leave that job and actually pursue another passion in your life. So that company asks you for your ID badge and your keys and all the other equipment that they gave you. At first, you may feel a sense of loss or uncertainty because we've wrapped our identity to that. That little card held so much towards our lives. But as we dive into this new career, you start to realize your identity was never truly that career, that job. It was just a single role that you held at the time. You're still dedicated, creative, and passionate. So what was it? Was it the title, the card that you carried with your name on it? No, because you never changed. The ID card was just one chapter of your life. What does all that mean? That whole analogy, that whole story was to represent that your identity is not tied up into just one thing. But even though we live our lives like that, we spend so many years wrapping ourselves up into this one thing that defines who we are. But we have to look at it and say, now, what are the new possibilities of looking at my identity differently? Like the example of having your ID card and just carrying it around with you all the time. Is that all you are? Think about yourself 10 years ago. Have you changed? Are you still that same person? Think about yourself during COVID compared to now. What has changed? Is it a physical difference? An emotional difference? Is it how you look at the world today? How we go about things can't just be wrapped up into one thing. We are constantly changing, and we have to be ready and open to that. When I was at Clemson, all I used to think of myself was Akeem, the football player, because that's how I identified myself. I centered everything around being Akeem, the football player. Fast forward to when my career was over and I was no longer playing, all I still imagined myself was Akeem, the football player. I put so much into that title that when it was over, I didn't know what to call myself. Have you ever been there before? You carry around something for so long that when the circumstances have now changed, you don't know what to call yourself. Or you don't even think it's right to call yourself anything different. You put so much into that title that now that things have changed, you feel lost. That was me. I didn't know who Akeem was without football because my identity was wrapped up into that. Daniel Pink, the author, also goes on to say, asking why can lead to understanding. Asking why not can lead to breakthroughs. So, why is it important to have an evolving identity? So you don't get stuck in the same habits, lifestyle, and routines that lead to nowhere. Doing the same repeated mistakes over and over and expecting something different, people call that insanity. So as you go through different stages of life, your sense of purpose naturally shifts and transforms. Our perspective on the world starts to take a different shape. And our perception on our roles in our society and our family and our workplace, they start to change as well. So our desires and our priorities now start to be different because we're growing older and we're looking at things differently. Think about it. The same things you wanted as a child, they don't hold the same weight now in this stage of your life. Because your perspective and your identity is now starting to form to want new things and go for new things. So we don't feel stuck in our career. Reflect on your career path. Being adaptable and flexible in the workplace is crucial. Consider the power of your mind and how that helps you grow, become different. The way you view your job, your role in the organization, your relationships with your coworkers is an ever-changing process. So it's important to understand and embrace the power of flexibility in your thoughts, your perceptions, and it also helps you in feeling discouraged when things don't go your way. Don't buy the lie of keeping your eye on the prize. I wish somebody told me this when I was younger, because we get so fixated on keeping our eye on that one thing that what if it doesn't work out? What if it doesn't happen that way? We get so discouraged and we feel like a failure. Or you have the ultimate thing happen to you and you do get the prize. Now what? I remember somebody spoke to us back when I was in college and they showed a picture of all these faces and they said all of these faces are Olympians that committed suicide, that won. Because once they won, they didn't know what else to do. Be open to different perspectives and experiences that can lead to personal growth. These things can add a more fulfilling nature to your life. By just labeling yourself as one thing can now start to put a limit on your own personal growth and creativity. It can stunt you for seeking new opportunities and finding out new passions and strengths that you are. So what else can you add to titles that have already been given to you or that you've already put on yourself? Can you put more meaning behind them? For example, that I am a mom, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach. Can you give these things more meaning? Society will give you an identity you don't like. When you don't allow your identity to evolve, you may feel pressure from society to fit into the identity that doesn't align with you, who you are now. Let me break this down. Think about that one friend who loved to go out every weekend during college. That may be even you. They were always the life of the party. They were always that one, I'm down, I'm ready to go. They always had fun with them. Years later, you may have changed. You may now like the quiet lifestyle, doing things at home, or just a fun game night. But those hobbies don't sit well with your friends because despite these changes, some of your friends might still see you as that party goer, and they label you as that because they don't see you as anything differently. Just like that ID card example from earlier, those labels don't define your true identity. They're just simply part of your past, but they're not your present. They're not who you are today. It's important to remember that our society is not tied to that one phase or that role that was in our life in the past. We are constantly evolving. It's okay to let go of the old labels and embrace new ones that better reflect who we have become now. So as you navigate through life, remember that you have the power to define yourself beyond the labels society might place on you. So why is personal growth often challenging while the world around me seems to be transforming so easily? Especially in the world of social media, every time you click on someone else, they seem so happy. They seem like they're making so much money. And sometimes you're like, am I behind? Am I not doing something right? Well, the reason we may feel like that is because, number one, we become complacent. We discussed this in a topic earlier in one of our earliest episodes, highlighting the distinction between seeking comfort and being complacent. If you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend you check it out. It's worth your time. The reason why we may feel like that is because we seek peace. And sometimes peace can just be the bare minimum. It can just be the below average because that is a peaceful place to be in. But if we really want change to happen in our lives, we have to understand that change is challenging and it requires us to step into these uncharted territories all the time. And in these situations, they're always unsettling because our sense of identity doesn't want to go there. It doesn't want to step into something new because that's always not on its own time frame. So our sense of identity is connected a lot of times with our current habits and routines. So if you want to change your identity, you have to change your current habits and routines. Another significant factor in society is how it influences us. We've already talked about social media, but now what about family and friends? They're constantly expecting us to conform to norms sometimes. We have this fear within us in a lot of those situations that when we decide to modify some of those things and change how we may be perceived, we sometimes may face judgment or maybe even experience isolation. The fear of losing friends, losing families because you want to be different. So you're stepping into a new territory. See, I might not be getting to some of y'all. So let me try to bring this into another analogy. If you're a parent, you will probably understand that this is something that's constantly changing because your child is constantly changing. But in a lot of those situations, you have a way of how you want to do things, how you want to approach being a parent. And in a lot of situations, there may be some external family members or people that have different experiences, they want to constantly put their hand in it. So our perspective and our approaches may be different, and it may seem a little different. And in a lot of those situations, it might have to be unchanged or changing things to fit. But who were you before you had kids? Your relationship with some of those people were different. But now that you have children, guess what? You have a different priority. You don't hang out with them as much. You don't see them as much because you now have new priorities in your life, and those have shifted your importance. So establishing boundaries can become more challenging once you become a parent. It may feel unfamiliar. It may be out of character because, again, you're now isolating yourself from your friends, your family that don't really see it the way you see it, or they don't do it the way you do it. And that's okay, but you now make the priority to say, my family's number one. So How do we start to create a whole new identity? Maybe if you're listening for the first time and you've never really taken the time to reflect on your true self and engaging in this way of thinking and how we go about doing things, we're going to give you some tips. Number one, to know yourself, you have to reflect. You have to get to know yourself, become friends with yourself. One of the biggest things I counsel people on is being friends with yourself. Everybody remembers that first date or that first friendship or your best friend and how important it is to you to represent yourself in the best way possible because you really like that person. Yourself is no different. You have to spend so much time in getting to know yourself that you want to be best friends with yourself. It's not a competition. You should want to know yourself, not compete against yourself. So spend time reflecting on your values, your beliefs, what matters to you. In order for you to start to get to know yourself, you can ask yourself questions that will start to make you search for answers. Like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are you passionate about? Just those simple questions can now start to gauge you and take a deeper dive into who you are. But we can even take it one step further. Your community, your social roles, how have these things identified you? In order for you to get to know yourself, you have to reflect. Number two, be open to feedback you receive from others. For me, I've always been a taller and bigger guy than most people. And so every time when I would meet someone new for the first time, they would always tell me, wow, look at your size. I don't want to get into a fight with you. Man, you're so intimidating. Man, you're so scary. And after a while, that really started to bother me. It really started to affect the way I was thinking and viewing myself because I didn't see myself that way, but why did everybody else see me that way? It wasn't until a few years ago that Allison helped me see it in a different light. She told me that statement to her was actually seen as a compliment because she saw me as a protector. She saw this family being protected by my size and who I was. And I never looked at it that way before, but her feedback and the way she viewed it allowed me to redefine that label that people put on me. It allowed me to dig in deeper to that identity that they gave me and give it more meaning. And it started allowing me to embrace that guy and not run from that guy. But if you don't have people in your life that can speak into your life and tell you the feedback, or if you're not willing to receive it, you will have no idea what to search for. You won't even know where to start. So ask yourself, who can I go to for honest feedback? And who can I go to that I'm willing to receive the feedback from? Number three, don't identify yourself with one thing. You are not one thing. I get so caught up into this because in a lot of these situations, we are told, what's that one thing? What's that one thing? But in many situations, we can't just be one thing. In a game, in life, in our families, in relationships, the other person is not looking for you to just be one thing. But somehow we have been convinced to think it's just one thing, and we tell ourselves that. You don't believe me? What's that one thing you've been telling yourself? I'm a teacher. I'm an athlete. I'm a coach. I'm a dad. Stop saying it like that. Because when you say it like that, that's all you give it credit for. You're stopping your own story. Saying I'm a teacher does nothing for your growth. It does nothing to develop you to truly who you are. So give it some meaning. Let me help you out. Instead of saying I'm a teacher, say I'm a teacher because I love helping people, encouraging and educating people that when they're not in my classroom, they're ready for life. Stop saying I'm just an athlete. Say I'm an athlete that loves to compete. I love to stay physical, and this provides me the opportunity to show people that Your body is capable. You can do more. And you're not just sitting on the past of your scholarship or what you did 10 years ago. You're giving somebody a story for today. Number 4, attach your identity to qualities and beliefs about yourself that you're grounded into right now. Yes, saying I'm strong, hardworking, I'm the person that can get these things done continues to give yourself more meaning, continues to provide more fuel to yourself. Completing the sentence, I'm a hard worker because I love what I do. I'm passionate about these projects and I'm so excited to put them in the hands of the public because I know that's something that I did. I'm empathetic and compassionate for others, and it's a way for me to see how pouring love into my students continues to show that they can pour love into other people. When you provide meaning behind these statements, you give it life. You give it the ability to start to sprout out and do different things that we didn't even think it could do before. But that was all because we had the ability of giving it life. Regardless of the circumstances we find ourselves in, we sometimes connect ourselves with just these one aspects. No, continue to pour in different things that make you who you are. Give yourself more than one definition. You're not just one thing, so give yourself more. Socrates once said, "The secret of change is to focus all of your energy, not on finding the old, but on building the new." Embrace the beauty of welcoming change. Embrace the possibilities of the future. Every day presents a chance for you to recognize your own individuality and grow into a better version of yourself. So celebrate the ever-changing world around you as it's happening in real time, but also celebrate the fact that you're developing yourself. You're shifting how you're viewing things. You're giving your family, your friendships, situations at work, the opportunity to now grow and be different because you're allowing your thoughts and yourself to be different. Every day presents a chance to shape who you are. It just requires you to change your identity. Thank you. And I hope we change how you thought today.